welcome. This is a podcast available for download from the BBC archives. Today we'll be going behind the scenes of what goes into the making of an amateur pantomime, and we'll be talking to Kate, the set designer, Rick, who takes part in the pantomimes, and also Joanna, who has been in the pantomimes since she was a baby.
So I'm Kate Hilton, and I paint the scenery for the pantomime.
How much work goes on behind the scenes that the audience don't know goes on?
A lot. We start about 6 months before the pantomime actually runs, and start with trying to get rid of all the old stuff, and then start painting and creating new stuff, which is a lot of work. And that goes on all the way up till the dress rehearsal. Once dress rehearsal's done, and for a few weeks before, everyone's trying to shift things to learn their own cues, because there's a lot of scenery and stage staff shifting a lot of stuff around, and they have to be very, very quiet, so they have to learn how to do it.
So would you say that you're working hard all the time, more or less? Like working every minute of the pantomime?
Definitely working every minute of the pantomime. We often start before the actors actually start learning their script and getting their script in order to actually get everything in place. And it's non-stop.
Hiya, I'm Rick Morgan. I've been in pantomime for Old Chapel for 4 years, and previously for St John's from age 3 to 14.
How did you become involved in pantomimes?
Well, I became involved in them when I was young, through going to church, which was St John's in Duckingfield, right? And I must have been around, I reckon about 4-year-old when I was in my first one, because my mum used to be in them. So, because my mum was in them, she took me to the practices, and then I was in them. I think I was in them from St John's from being, like I said, about 4-year-old. I think I was in my last one when I was about 15 years old. And then the reverend there, he kind of, I think he passed away, and his wife, they moved on, so the pantomimes kind of folded up. So I didn't do one for years and years. And then obviously I got involved because I know people from Old Chapel, I know people at this church, and I used to come then to watch the pantomimes with my own kids as I've got older. And Christine, who is she the director, isn't she?
Director, producer, yeah.
Yeah, she runs the pantomime. So because I know her and she's been a long-term family friend, I've always used to say, I've said to her as a joke, I'll be in your pantomimes, because I used to be in them as a kid. I'll sort your pantomime out, because I was only joking. And then what happened was I was saying that for a couple of years, and then I think it was Lorraine one year missed the pantomime.
We had a dropout. We had a part drop out of the pantomime.
That was right. Yeah.
You had to fill in.
Lorraine, and I was sat in the bath one night in G Cross, in my house in G Cross, and I got the phone rung, and it was Christine. Who didn't ring me as much then. I mean, she rings me all the time now I'm in the pantomimes, but she rung me in this night. She says, do you know how you're always going on about sorting me pantomime out? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, will you be in it? And I thought, oops, I don't know now.
Possibly the wrong thing to say.
yeah. But anyway, it became about where I was in it. I think that was it 2011, you said, didn't you? And I've been in them ever since. It was 3 since then, and this is the 4th one. So and I'm like, sometimes you say, oh, it takes too much time, this is my last pantomime, oh, it takes me too much time, but I do know, with dropping out of them when I was 14, what it's like when you're not in them, and when you come to watching them, you're wishing you were back in them. So
it's weird sat in the audience. Yeah,
it is. It's like, it gets a bit addictive. Yeah. And it's not just the pantomime, is it? It's what goes on behind the scenes, and sat in the back, you meet a load of good people and have a good few beers, and it's a good crack, yeah.
How much goes on behind the scenes that the audience won't probably know goes on?
Oh, well, they obviously won't know that. I mean, this pantomime's on, I think it starts, is it the 15th of February?
Yeah.
And they probably don't know that we've been practising it since, I think, September we start, end of September. So it's like the best part of 5 months. You probably won't be able to tell that when you see the performance, but but we do. We like it.
Yeah.
I think we have one rehearsal a week up until Christmas. The kids rehearse once a week up until Christmas, and then after Christmas you get 2 nights a week. So for 2 months you're practising 2 nights a week, and then obviously it gets there's a few more rehearsals nearer the time of the performance, but there is a lot of work, and that's just the people who are in it and the actors, and then you get all the times where you come up, you see people preparing and building scenery. And then there's also the other team, like the technical team, who are preparing the lighting show and the sound show. Even though it sounds dramatic for a little amateur pantomime, it's true. This is what goes on, isn't it? We do it as professionally as we can.
Yeah.
And since I've been, I mean, I think it's been full. And we do it for 7 nights. We do it 7 nights a week, and we have a matinee on the Saturday. So it is 8 performances, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think they're all, as far as I've known it, they've all been sellouts. It must be since I arrived. No, only joking. But they've all been sellouts. I mean, I think it holds about 110 people a night. Yeah, so you're heading on for 1,000 people in a week, and it's not bad, that, you know. It's makes some good money, and they are a good crack, aren't they?
Yeah. Who would you say the most challenging audience members are?
Well, oh God, you'll know the answer to that as well. Yeah, there's like I think there's 2 or 3 nights in the week, probably 2 nights in the week, which are usually the Tuesday and the Wednesday. And it's when it's the organised groups like the Brownies and the Guides or the Cubs. Yeah. They come in, and also, since we've been doing the matinees on the Saturday afternoon, we started that last year. Kind of wasn't as atmospheric because it was daytime and it was full of a lot of young children.
Yeah, so you've got to work harder to make them laugh at the jokes, really.
And some of the jokes, obviously, you cater for adults as well, so some of the jokes will fly over their head, they won't understand it. So it's hard, you know, it's kind of hard to get the balance, but yeah, it is harder when they're in, the audience isn't as rowdy, so to speak.
Yeah, so you've got to make it child friendly, more like.
Yeah, you have, and you've got to. Sometimes it's slow. I mean, it's easier to perform up there when people are having a good laugh at you and heckling you, and when they're kind of just staring at you. Yeah, it's not as easy.
What's been your favourite pantomime?
What, in the the 3 I've been in, and this one? I think the first one, which was Sinbad the Sailor, where I played Mustafa Kit Kat. Last year's was good, the Irish one, but no, my favourite is the first one, obviously.
Why was it your favourite? How did you get involved in pantomime? Pantomimes?
I was a part of the church beforehand, a few years earlier, so then I've just joined when I was about 3.
What was the first pantomime you did?
Sinbad the Sailor.
Is the hardest bit, like, leading up to the pantomime?
It's quite a commitment, so you've got to give up a lot of nights, and you have to be prepared because it's all volunteers, obviously. Just generally trying to put it all together, because it's all right in rehearsals when you're all working separately on your own individual thing, but when you have to bring it all together, you know.
What's the most difficult thing about doing a pantomime?
Probably in the first few weeks, actually, when you've read your script over before you actually begin to rehearse, actually trying to project it on the stage, putting the stage directions, putting your actions in, trying to work your dialogue and fit it all in. That's probably the hardest bit, making it come to real life.